You could probably think of this as part 2 to my Fanboyism Ruins Everything rant that I did back in November, and probably part 2 to a couple of other rants like not pre-ordering and things that are wrong with the gaming industry. Yeah, you get the idea. So Street Fighter V came out on PC and PS4 a short while ago, and it was met with a lot of heavy criticism from fans of the series as it lacked a lot of single-player content like an arcade mode, and it had online problems and had a lot of bugs from what I heard. Well, there's a YouTuber, Hip Hop Gamer, who defended the game, explaining how people complaining about the servers not working, but yet when they did, no one made videos about the issues being fixed. The problem with his logic is that the game should have worked right away when you downloaded it or brought it home. Then he defends that it's a new engine, which is Unreal Engine 4, which Capcom had licensed from Epic Games. So they did not build the game engine from scratch, and the previous generation, a lot of games used Unreal Engine 3, which a lot of game companies are very familiar with Unreal Engine 3, and Unreal 4 is just a more advanced version with more features. He says that it's on a different platform. The PS4 is pretty much a PC. The processor is by AMD, it uses x86-64 architecture, which is the same as PC, and Capcom has been making PC games for years. If it was on a system that was ARM-based or cell processor or even PowerPC architecture, then maybe he'd have a leg to stand on, albeit an atrophied stubby one. He compares Capcom to a new employee starting a new job, and having people heavily criticize you isn't going to help you when you screw up. That's just plain stupid person logic, especially since people working on the game are people who have made games for years, and Capcom has been around since the late 70s. He talks about games being a service as an excuse for the lack of an arcade mode. You know, a basic mode that's always been part of fighting games since the beginning, like that's an excuse. This is also the same guy that defended the Order 1886, in a rant that is pure nonsensical with analogies that don't make any sense, and I think he judges the quality of games based on the graphics alone. Like saying that when a game company makes a bad decision, you need to support them and not criticize them, which leads me to think that Hip Hop Gamer is probably a troll. Speaking of trolls, people have told me that Sammy Classic is actually just being a troll. Even if Hip Hop Gamer is a troll, there are people out there that are genuine and act like how he does. Why do you think games ship broken and need day one patches or patches over the course of several months? Why do you think Batman Arkham Knight for the PC was a mess? Why do you think that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 had an 8GB patch for a 4GB game and it's still a piece of shit? It seems that defending the AAA market's bad decisions only hurt it more and more. When Evolve was said to be built around DLC, like selling gun skins for $2 in a $60 game, making it multiplayer only with no single player campaign, makes the game utterly useless once the servers go down. Same thing with Titanfall, a game that once there's no more servers, it's completely useless. Which brings me back to my point that I made a long time ago about games being $60 condoms. You stick it in, blow your load, throw it out, and then you buy a new one. Or how about the new Star Wars Battlefront that launched with only 4 maps, and when you compare it to the older Star Wars Battlefront games, those had a lot more content in them at launch. And you may be getting ready to say that games cost more to develop, but first ask yourself, how much of the budget is spent on expensive ads? Why do we always hear about stories of AAA development staff being underpaid and not getting paid overtime? Why is it that indie devs can rake in profits hand over fist as their games are relatively cheap and are giving us experiences that exceed what the AAA market gives us? Something isn't adding up here. However, these practices don't get the scorn they truly deserve. That gets reserved for games like Metroid Prime Federation Force. Granted, I'm not going to defend that game, ever. It looks bad and is merely using the Metroid name as a way to drive sales instead of being a new IP. The trailer has gotten such negative reception that Nintendo actually disabled ratings on its YouTube channel as dislikes outnumbered the likes 3-1. People have been wanting a new, real Metroid Prime game as the last one came out in 2007. And Other M, which is a game I've only played for a few minutes at a GameStop, has been lauded as the worst in the series, mostly because of its story being the most common complaint that I've seen about it. I have the game but haven't played it. Maybe when Nintendo stops hating YouTube content creators, I'll review it. But no one seems to be willing to give this game a shot. I don't blame them. People have been lusting for a new Metroid game, to play as Samus, the galaxy's most awesome bounty hunter in another adventure. And then we got this Metabot looking game for the 3DS, which pretty much tells me that the Wii U could not be any more of a sinking ship than it already is. Which is their own fault because they quietly released it and had no OMG gotta have it games for the system upon its release. It's like the more a game is marketed and shoved in your face, the less scorn it gets for the stupid choices the developers and publishers make. It's almost as if it's brainwashing people into liking a game they probably wouldn't, either it being not their thing or a game that's just mediocre at best. It's like when Apple goes on stage and makes relatively mundane things sound like the best thing ever, even if it was something the competition has had for years before them. I can understand if you like a game series. I get that. There's plenty of series out there that I like and enjoy, but if something happens and it rubs you the wrong way, and I don't mean like the changing of Sonic's voice actor, but something along the lines of cutting content for day one DLC, the ever-increasing cost of season passes as some of them are starting to be $60 now, and the release of shipping broken games with day one patches instead of delaying it, so this way they make the investors happy rather than the consumers. Free-to-play games that make you pay to do anything, stuff that'll hurt your wallet more than a crystal meth addiction. And as consumers, you have a voice. You can inspire change by not supporting these bad decisions that companies make. Remember Squeenix's Augment Your Pre-Order for Deus Ex Mankind Divided, where there were not only tiers for the amount of pre-orders, but you were only able to choose one item from those tiers. It was met with scathing criticism, and the idea was cancelled. The industry is going to collapse in on itself like the core of a star before it goes supernova and explodes. But unlike a real star exploding, we can actually stop it by letting our disdain for these terrible practices to be known. We can't support these bad decisions they make just because we like their game series or we like them as a company or have fallen into the hype, because they're only going to take advantage of it, which will set a precedent that we're okay with it, and we can't let that happen because it's not sustainable and there are consequences to supporting a bad decision.